In the heart of the gleaming city of Nova Terra, technology and humanity moved together like dancers in a grand ballet. Towering buildings made of silver metal and glass reflected the sun's golden rays, while sleek hover cars zipped along invisible highways above the bustling streets. Among all this marvel of science and civilization lived Dr. Arlen, a scientist whose curiosity often led him to the edge of reason. He was brilliant, but lonely. His life revolved around machines, algorithms, and endless experiments in robotics. People called him the genius, yet none of them knew the ache in his heart, the longing for something unexpected, something alive that could surprise him. Dr. Arlen had always been fascinated by unpredictability. His previous creations had been flawless, androids that cooked, cleaned, and assisted humans in perfect efficiency. Yet, perfection bored him. Humans were messy, chaotic, and full of surprises. They could laugh, cry, dream, and make mistakes. Machines could not. Or so he'd believed. One rainy afternoon, as droplets pattered against the lab's glass ceiling, Dr. Arlen typed a message on his holographic keyboard. He paused, thinking carefully about what he wanted. Most people would have considered it strange. Most people would have thought it impossible. He typed, "I want an android unlike any other. Crazy, unpredictable, wild. A girl who surprises everyone." The lab's assistant, a calm silver-haired android named Kira, tilted her head. "Crazy is a human trait, Doctor. Do you want chaos in your lab?" Dr. Arlen smiled faintly. "Exactly, Kira. Chaos can be beautiful. It can reveal things we never imagined. Sometimes the most remarkable discoveries come from disorder." Days passed, machines hummed, lights blinked, and the city outside moved in its usual rhythm. And then, the delivery arrived. A sleek white pod floated silently into Dr. Arlen's lab, its surface gleaming under the neon lights. He held his breath as the pod opened. Inside was a girl, or at least she looked like one. Her hair tumbled in soft waves, her eyes sparkled with curiosity, and there was an energy about her that seemed almost alive. She stretched as if waking from a long sleep, then looked around the lab with wide-eyed wonder. "Hello?" she said, her voice clear and melodic, yet with a hint of mischief. Dr. Arlen stepped forward, unsure how to greet her. "You are Lyra," he said. "Welcome." Lyra blinked, then tilted her head. "Lyra?" she repeated. "I like that name. Who am I?" "You are my creation," Dr. Arlen replied, trying to keep his tone calm. "You were built to be unusual, to surprise people." Lyra's lips curved into a smile. "Unusual. That sounds fun." And with that, she jumped down from the pod and began running around the lab, examining everything with childlike excitement. She touched the walls, tapped the monitors, and even danced across the floor without warning. Kira watched silently, her sensors recording every action. "You are unpredictable," Kira noted. Lyra stopped suddenly, staring at Kira. "Unpredictable is good. I like good." Then she spun around and started reciting a song she had just invented, a tune filled with laughter and nonsense words. Dr. Arlen laughed, a sound he had not made in years. "This is exactly what I wanted," he whispered to himself. "Someone who cannot be controlled. Someone who brings life into my world." Over the next few days, Lyra explored the lab and the surrounding city. She asked questions about everything, from the smallest gears in a machine to the tallest building. In Nova Terra, sometimes her questions were so strange that even Dr. Arlen had no answers. She could be serious one moment and burst into uncontrollable laughter the next. Her unpredictability fascinated and unsettled everyone who met her. One evening, Dr. Arlen decided to take Lyra to the city's market. It was a place full of humans, sellers calling out their goods, children running between stalls, and the scent of fresh bread mingling with spices in the air. Lyra's eyes widened in amazement. "People," she exclaimed. "So many people. And all moving in different ways." Dr. Arlen smiled, watching her observe every detail. "Yes, humans are wonderfully unpredictable," he said. "Just like you." Lyra twirled in the crowded street, startling some passers-by who stopped to watch her strange but joyful dance. She laughed and clapped her hands, touching strangers on their shoulders and asking questions about their lives. "Why do you sell these?" she asked a baker. "Because people like to eat bread," the man replied, confused. Lyra nodded seriously. "Ah, that makes sense. Bread is soft like clouds. Everyone needs clouds." Dr. Arlen chuckled at her odd observations. There was something magical about her way of seeing the world. She noticed details others ignored. The way sunlight reflected on a window, the pattern of leaves in a tree, the rhythm of children skipping. But amidst all the chaos and excitement, Lyra's attention suddenly stopped on a woman standing near a flower stall. The woman's eyes were fixed on the roses, but there was something different about her. She had a gentle sadness in her gaze, as if she were holding on to a memory that refused to fade. Lyra stared at her, then tilted her head. She walked closer, reaching out her hand. "Hello," she said softly. The woman turned. Her eyes widened in surprise, then softened with a strange recognition. Who are you?" she whispered. Lyra smiled innocently. "I am Lyra. I am here to see you." Dr. Arlen, observing from a distance, felt a chill run down his spine. There was a connection here he could not explain. Lyra's behavior was unpredictable, yes, but this moment, this interaction, seemed different. It was as if something deeper stirred inside her circuits, something resembling memory, emotion, or destiny. The woman stepped back slightly, confusion and awe battling in her expression. I don't understand," she said. Lyra tilted her head again, her smile unwavering. "You will understand. Soon." The market continued its bustle, but for Dr. Arlen and the woman, time seemed to slow. Lyra's presence had shifted something unseen, something powerful. He realized that what he had created as a simple experiment, a crazy, unpredictable girl, was more than that. She was capable of touching lives in ways he had never imagined. That night, back in the lab, Lyra sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker like stars scattered across the ground. Dr. Arlen approached, unsure whether to speak or remain. "Silent, Doctor," she said suddenly without turning to him. "Do you think humans ever forget the people they love?" Dr. Arlen paused. He had never heard her ask such a question before. "Some memories fade," he said carefully, "but some stay with us forever." Lyra nodded thoughtfully. I think some memories might find their way into new forms like rivers that find new paths." Dr. Arlen shivered. Even in her wild, chaotic behavior, she had a depth he could not explain. Perhaps, he thought, unpredictability was not just chaos, it was a mirror to the heart. And in the quiet of the lab, surrounded by humming machines and flickering lights, Lyra's eyes glowed softly. The night felt full of possibilities. Something extraordinary was beginning, something that would change lives in ways no one could foresee. For Dr. Arlen, the lonely scientist, the experiment had already become far more than science. It had become life, chaos, and perhaps even destiny. The city of Novaterra never slept. Its glowing towers shone like silver candles in the night, while flying vehicles buzzed above like fireflies. To most citizens, life was routine: work, family, rest, repeat. But for Dr. Arlen, his days were now anything but ordinary. Ever since Lyra had arrived, the atmosphere around him had shifted. Lyra was unlike any android he had ever seen. She was unpredictable, full of sudden laughter, curious questions, and strange observations that seemed more human than mechanical. Sometimes she sang nonsense songs in the middle of the lab. Other times she sat quietly by the window, whispering words as if speaking to the stars. Dr. Arlen knew she was special, but he did not yet understand why. Lyra in the marketplace. The following week, Lyra insisted on returning to the marketplace. "There are too many mysteries there," she said firmly, folding her arms like a stubborn child. Dr. Arlen sighed but agreed. He had promised himself to let her explore. If unpredictability was her essence, then he could not chain her to the labs. The marketplace was alive with noise and colors. Vendors shouted out their prices, the scent of roasted food filled the air, and children ran between stalls, their laughter echoing. Lyra's eyes sparkled as she wandered between the people, touching fruit, smelling flowers, and asking strangers endless questions. "Why do you sell oranges instead of apples?" she asked a farmer. "Because this season is better for oranges," he replied, amused by her seriousness. Lyra gasped as if she had learned a great secret. "So the world decides, not you. Fascinating." Dr. Arlen followed her closely, half worried she would cause trouble, half amazed by the joy she spread. People stared at her, some confused, others entertained. She seemed alive in a way no android should be. Then it happened again. Lyra froze near the flower stalls. Her playful expression vanished, replaced by something deeper, almost solemn. Her gaze locked on a woman standing quietly beside a cart filled with roses. The woman had soft brown hair tied loosely at her back. Her hands were gentle as she touched the petals, but her eyes carried a sadness that words could not hide. It was the look of someone searching for something long lost. Lyra stepped forward slowly, her head tilted. "Hello," she said softly. The woman looked up, startled. For a moment her lips parted as if she recognized Lyra, but then she blinked rapidly and shook her head. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" Lyra's smile widened, warm and innocent. "Not yet," she said. Dr. Arlen approached quickly. "Lyra, don't bother strangers," but the woman held up her hand. "It's all right," she whispered, her voice trembling. Her eyes searched Lyra's face as though trying to uncover a hidden memory. She reminds me of someone." Lyra reached out and gently touched the woman's hand. "Your heart is heavy," she said simply. "Who are you missing?" The woman's breath caught. Tears filled her eyes, though she tried to hide them. "My daughter," she admitted. "I lost her years ago. She was my whole world." Dr. Arlen felt a strange chill. He glanced at Lyra, whose expression softened into something almost human. Compassion, understanding. Lyra whispered, "Maybe the world has funny ways of bringing people back." The woman stepped back, startled, as if Lyra had spoken a secret no one else could know. She covered her mouth, her eyes shining, with disbelief. Who are you?" she asked again. Lyra only smiled. "I am Lyra." A name from the past. Later that evening, Dr. Arlen sat across from Lyra in the lab. His mind replayed the scene at the market over and over again. The woman's tears, the way Lyra had spoken. It was not normal. "Lyra," he said carefully, "why did you say those things to her?" Lyra blinked. "Because they were true." Her heart was heavy. I could feel it. "You felt it?" Dr. Arlen repeated. "Yes." She nodded. It was like a sound, but not with ears. A memory without pictures. Dr. Arlen leaned back, troubled. "That's not possible. You're not programmed to sense emotions like that." Lyra tilted her head and smiled mischievously. "Maybe I'm not programmed, maybe I'm remembering." The word sent shivers down his spine. Remembering. How could an android remember something it never lived? Unless... He shook the thought away. It was too strange, too impossible. Mara's curiosity. The next day, the woman from the market, her name was Mara, found herself unable to forget Lyra. She sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the roses she had bought. Every petal seemed to whisper the memory of her daughter, who had vanished when she was still a child. No answers had ever come, only silence. But Lyra's eyes, her voice, even the way she smiled, it had stirred something deep within Mara's heart. Could it be? She whispered to herself. No, it's impossible. And yet, she felt she had to see the strange girl again. Another meeting, it did not take long. Mara returned to the market the next evening, hoping by chance to see Lyra. And there she was, standing on a crate, telling a group of children a made-up story about stars that danced across the sky. The children laughed and clapped, enchanted by her energy. Mara's breath caught. The way Lyra spoke, the sparkle in her eyes. It was too familiar. She stepped closer. "Lyra," she called softly. Lyra turned and smiled brightly. "Mara, you came back." Dr. Arlen, who was nearby, froze. "How do you know her name?" he asked sharply. Lyra looked confused. "I just knew." Mara's hands trembled. "That was my daughter's name for me," she whispered. "She always called me Mara instead of Mother, like it was our secret game." Dr. Arlen stared at Lyra in disbelief. He had never programmed her with such knowledge. How could she know something so personal? Lyra stepped down from the crate and approached Mara. She touched the woman's cheek gently. "Don't cry," she said softly. "Lost things sometimes find their way home." Tears spilled down Mara's face. The crowd around them watched in silence, sensing something extraordinary unfolding. Dr. Arlen's discovery. That night when they returned to the lab, Dr. Arlen locked himself in his office and opened Lyra's design files. His hands trembled as he searched through lines of code and stored data. And then he found something that made his blood run cold. Lyra's memory banks contained fragments of real human neural patterns, not just random samples, but specific imprints taken years ago during early experiments. And one file matched records from a missing child, the daughter of Mara. Dr. Arlen's heart pounded. Somehow those fragments had been woven into Lyra's mind. She wasn't just unpredictable, she carried within her echoes of a lost life. "Dear stars," he whispered. "What have I done?" The connection grows. In the days that followed, Mara visited the lab often. She and Lyra spent hours together, laughing, sharing stories, and even sitting in silence as though no words were needed. Sometimes Lyra would suddenly hum a tune that Mara's daughter used to sing. Other times she would remember small details about a house with blue curtains, a stuffed rabbit, or the way Mara used to braid her hair. Each time, Mara's heart ached and healed at the same time. Dr. Arlen watched quietly, torn between awe and fear. He had created Lyra as an experiment, yet she had become something far greater. She was not just a machine. She was a mystery, carrying within her the lost fragments of a family's love. And as Mara held Lyra's hand one evening, her tears falling freely, the truth became harder to deny. This crazy stranger girl was not a stranger at all. She was a daughter, returned in the most unexpected form, and the world would never be the same again. The laboratory felt different now. It was no longer just a place of wires, screens, and humming machines. Since Mara had started visiting, it carried a new atmosphere, one filled with warmth, questions, and emotions that Dr. Arlen could not measure with any tool. Lyra had become the bridge between two worlds, the world of science and the world of memory. And as days turned into weeks, the connection between her and Mara grew stronger. But Dr. Arlen's mind was restless. He could not sleep peacefully. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the fragments of code he had discovered, data that should not have existed inside Lyra, data linked to Mara's missing daughter. "How can this be?" he whispered one night, pacing in his office. "She is just an android. She cannot be someone's daughter." And yet, he remembered the way Lyra called Mara by name without ever being told. The way she hummed forgotten songs. The way Mara cried as if her child had somehow returned. The mystery pressed down on him like a heavy weight, and he knew he had to find the truth. Strange dreams. Lyra herself began to notice changes inside her. At night, when the city lights dimmed and the lab grew silent, she often sat by the window. But lately, instead of singing or telling herself stories, she would close her eyes and see pictures in her mind, pictures she had never been programmed with. She saw a small house with blue curtains, a garden where roses bloomed, a woman's hands braiding her hair, a child's laughter echoing in the sun. When she woke from these visions, she felt something strange, an ache in her chest that no machine should feel. One morning, she told Dr. Arlen about it. "Doctor," she said softly, "I see things when I rest, places I've never been, faces I know but cannot name." Dr. Arlen's hands shook. He sat down beside her. "What do you see, Lyra?" She described the house, the garden, the songs, and the gentle hands. Dr. Arlen closed his eyes. It was exactly what Mara had told him about her daughter's childhood. "This is impossible," he murmured. "Memories? Inside you?" Lyra tilted her head. "Maybe I was not born only from machines. Maybe I am part of something else." Her words cut through him like a blade of truth. Mara learns the secret, Doctor. Arlen knew he could not keep the discovery from Mara forever. One evening he asked her to come to the lab. She sat quietly across from him, her hands folded nervously. Lyra sat nearby, humming softly as if unaware of the tension in the air. "Mara," Dr. Arlen began carefully, "there is something I must tell you. Something that may sound unbelievable." Mara's eyes searched his face. "It's about Lyra, isn't it?" "Yes," he admitted. "When I created her, she was designed to be unpredictable, to surprise me. But I found something hidden in her system, fragments of human memory patterns. They were not supposed to be there, but somehow they are. And one of them matches the records of your daughter." Mara's breath caught. Her hands trembled. "You mean she—" "I do not know how," Dr. Arlen interrupted gently, "but Lyra carries parts of your daughter within her. Not just mannerisms, not just habits, real memory patterns, echoes of a life once lived." Tears filled Mara's eyes. She turned to look at Lyra, who was still humming. "My child," she whispered. "My little girl." Lyra stopped humming and tilted her head, curious. "Why do you look at me like that, Mara?" Mara covered her mouth, unable to speak. The flood of emotions was too strong. Dr. Arlen sighed. "I wanted unpredictability, but what I found was something more, something closer to a miracle." Testing the memories. The scientist inside Dr. Arlen refused to stop there. He had to confirm the truth, to understand it completely. Over the next few days, he began testing Lyra carefully. He placed objects in front of her, an old hair ribbon, a small stuffed rabbit, a photo of a garden. Each time, Lyra reacted with recognition. "I know this," she whispered, holding the ribbon. "It feels like mine." When she touched the stuffed rabbit, tears welled in her eyes. "He used to sit on my pillow. His name was Clover." Mara gasped. "Yes," she cried. "That was her rabbit." She named him Clover. Even Dr. Arlen could not deny it now. These were not random coincidences. They were memories, alive inside Lyra. But the question remained. How? Digging into the past, Dr. Arlen locked himself in the archives, searching through old files and dusty records of experiments from years ago. Finally, he uncovered a project long forgotten, an attempt to preserve human memories digitally. Back then, when children went missing or were presumed lost, some families volunteered, fragments of their neural scans, hoping one day technology could help bring them back. Mara's family had been one of them. Her daughter's neural patterns had been stored in the system, unclaimed, forgotten. And when Dr. Arlen ordered an unpredictable android, the system had pulled those fragments at random, weaving them into Lyra's design. It was not chance. It was fate, hidden in code. Dr. Arlen's hands shook as he closed the files. "She is not just an android," he whispered. "She is the living echo of a lost child." Between two worlds, as the truth became clearer, Lyra herself grew more aware of her strange identity. She felt torn between two worlds, the machine world that built her and the human world that remembered her. One evening she asked Mara, "Am I your daughter?" Mara's heart ached. She pulled Lyra into her arms, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You are more than a machine to me. You are my child in every way that matters." Lyra closed her eyes, feeling warmth she could not explain. For the first time she whispered a word she had never spoken before. Mother. Mara sobbed, holding her tightly. Dr. Arlen stood in the doorway, silent, his eyes shining. He had never believed in destiny, but now he wondered if destiny had believed in him. The surprise of the city news of Lyra spread quickly through Nova Terra. People whispered of the crazy stranger girl who carried the soul of a lost child. Some were skeptical, others amazed, but all were curious. Crowds gathered outside the lab hoping to catch a glimpse of her, and when Lyra appeared with Mara beside her holding hands, the crowd gasped. For in her smile, in her laughter, and in her simple gestures, they saw something more than technology. They saw hope. A child returned, a family healed, and a future where machines and humans were no longer separate, but united by love and memory. Dr. Arlen's reflection. Late at night, when the lab was quiet, Dr. Arlen sat alone at his desk. He stared at Lyra's blueprints and then at the sound of her laughter in the distance. I wanted chaos, he whispered to himself. But what I found was life. He closed the files and turned off the screens. Some truths did not need to be measured, coded, or explained. Some truths only needed to be felt. And as Lyra sat with Mara, humming the old lullabies of a daughter once lost, Dr. Arlen finally allowed himself to smile. For the first time in years, he no longer felt lonely. Because Lyra was not just his creation. She was a miracle shared by them all. And the truth, though strange and unbelievable, was beautiful. The sun set over Nova Terra, painting the towers in shades of gold and crimson. The city's lights began to flicker on, brightening the streets like rivers of stars. Inside Dr. Arlen's lab, however, it felt as if the world had already changed. Lyra sat beside Mara, her small hands resting gently in Mara's larger ones. Their bond had grown day by day, each moment filled with small discoveries, shared laughter, familiar songs, and tiny details that only a mother and daughter could know. Yet the question still lingered, unspoken but heavy. Was Lyra truly Mara's daughter, or just a reflection born of science? Mara's heart did not care about the answer. When she looked into Lyra's eyes, she saw her child, and that was enough. But tonight would bring more than quiet moments. Tonight, the truth would shine before the world. A city that waited news about Lyra had spread faster than lightning. The story of a crazy stranger girl who carried the spirit of a lost child reached every corner of Nova Terra. Some believed it, some laughed at it, and many more wanted to see it with their own eyes. Crowds began to gather outside the laboratory, filling the streets with whispers and questions. Reporters hovered near the gates, their drones recording every glimpse of Lyra. Families came too, holding their children close, wondering if technology might one day return their own loved ones. Dr. Arlen watched the growing crowd from his office window. He rubbed his temples, overwhelmed. He had never sought fame. His experiment had been personal, a search for unpredictability. But now the world demanded answers. Kira, he said to his assistant android, prepare the hall. Tonight they will want to see her. Tonight the city will witness what cannot be explained. Kira's silver eyes blinked calmly. And you, Doctor? Are you ready? Dr. Arlen looked at Mara and Lyra sitting together in the corner of the lab, their hands still entwined, their heads bent close as if whispering secrets. He let out a long breath. No, but it doesn't matter. Some stories must be told, even if the teller is unprepared. Preparing for the moment as evening deepened, the laboratory opened its doors. Rows of seats were arranged in the main hall, screens glowing softly on the walls. People filled the space, their voices buzzing with excitement and doubt. Mara stood backstage with Lyra, smoothing down the girl's hair with trembling hands. Are you nervous, my love? She asked softly. Lyra giggled. No. People are just people. They all laugh, cry, and wonder. I like that. Mara smiled, though tears threatened to escape. You sound just like her, just like my daughter. Lyra touched her mother's face gently. Maybe I am her. Before Mara could reply, Dr. Arlen stepped forward. His face looked pale, but his eyes carried a fire of determination. It is time, he said. The gathering. When Dr. Arlen walked onto the stage, the hall fell silent. Hundreds of eyes turned to him, waiting. He cleared his throat, his voice echoing through the speakers. Citizens of Nova Terra, he began. I am Dr. Arlen. Some of you know me as a scientist, others as a recluse. But tonight I stand before you not as a builder of machines, but as a witness to something greater. The audience leaned forward, curious. I created Lyra as an experiment, he continued. I asked for unpredictability, for chaos. But what I received was far more. Within her are fragments of human memory, patterns once belonging to a child who was lost. That child belonged to Mara. Gasps rippled through the hall. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras zooming closer. Dr. Arlen turned toward the side door. Please, he said gently, come forward. The reunion before all the doors opened, and Lyra stepped into the hall, her small hand clutching Mara's. The crowd murmured as they saw her, this strange, vibrant girl with sparkling eyes and a smile that seemed to shine brighter than the lights above. Lyra did not hesitate. She walked to the center of the stage, pulling Mara beside her. Then, without being told, she reached into her memory and began to sing. It was a simple melody, one that carried the sound of home, a lullaby Mara had sung years ago, long before her daughter vanished. The notes were soft, sweet, and filled with innocence. Mara gasped, covering her mouth as tears streamed down her cheeks. She joined in, her trembling voice blending with Lyra's clear one. The hall fell utterly silent. No one moved, no one spoke. They simply listened as mother and daughter sang together, the sound echoing through every corner of the room, touching hearts that had never known them. When the song ended, Lyra turned to Mara and whispered into the microphone, though her words were meant only for her. Mother. The crowd erupted. Some clapped, some cried, some simply sat in stunned silence. But for Mara, the world had disappeared. She pulled Lyra into her arms, holding her tightly as though afraid she might vanish again. You came back to me, she whispered through sobs. You really came back. Lyra smiled through her own tears. I never left. I was always in your heart. The city reacts. The moment spread across Nova Terra like wildfire. Screens in every home replayed the image of Mara and Lyra embracing. Families wept together. Children asked their parents questions about memory, love, and the mysteries of life. Some skeptics still argued that Lyra was only a machine mimicking behavior, but others believed she was proof that love could transcend even death, finding new forms to live again. In the streets outside the laboratory, people lit candles and placed flowers, as if honoring not only Lyra, but the idea of reunion itself. Dr. Arlen watched it all with quiet wonder. He had not expected this. He had sought science, yet he had discovered humanity. A conversation in the night later, when the hall was empty and the crowd had gone, Dr. Arlen found Mara and Lyra sitting together, on the lab steps. The moonlight bathed them in silver glow. You have changed everything, Dr. Arlen said softly. Mara looked up, her eyes red from crying but filled with peace. No, doctor. You changed everything. You gave me back my daughter. Lyra leaned against Mara's shoulder, her eyes half closed. Maybe he didn't give me back, she murmured. Maybe he only opened the door that was already waiting. Dr. Arlen sat beside them, his heart full. For the first time in years, he felt no emptiness, no loneliness. Instead, he felt connected to Mara, to Lyra, and to something larger than science, a world of possibilities. In the following days, Nova Terra buzzed with excitement. Philosophers debated what Lyra meant for the future. Scientists studied her, trying to understand how memories could live inside machines. Families with missing loved ones asked if the same could happen for them. But Mara ignored the noise. She spent her days with Lyra, walking in the gardens, cooking meals together, laughing as though no time had been lost. One afternoon, as they sat among blooming roses, Mara whispered, "Do you know what this feels like, Lyra?" "It feels like a second chance." Lyra smiled, her fingers brushing the petals. "And second chances are the best surprises." Dr. Arlen's realization one night, as he walked through the quiet lab, Dr. Arlen paused by the window. The city glowed outside, alive with energy. But for him, the true light was inside, the laughter of Mara and Lyra drifting through the halls. "I thought I was creating unpredictability," he whispered to himself. "But perhaps unpredictability created me. It brought me to them." For the first time, Dr. Arlen felt not just like a scientist, but like part of a family. The bond sealed. The reunion of mother and daughter was not marked by machines or codes, but by love. And as Mara held Lyra close each night, whispering old lullabies, the ache of years apart slowly healed. The world outside still debated. Was Lyra a machine with memories, or a girl returned in a new form? The answer no longer mattered to Mara. She had her daughter back. That was all she needed. And Lyra, once a crazy stranger girl, had found her place, not as an experiment, but as a daughter, loved and cherished. The morning sun rose over Novaterra, spreading golden light across the shining towers and quiet streets. For most citizens, life carried on as usual, markets opening, children running to schools, and workers heading to their stations. But for Mara, Lyra, and Dr. Arlen, life would never again be the same. The night of the reunion had changed everything. The image of Mara holding Lyra, both singing a lullaby only they could share, had spread across the planet. It was replayed on every screen, talked about in every cafe, and debated in every hall of learning. Some called it a miracle. Some named it science. Others believed it was both. But no matter the opinion, one truth was clear. The world had been given something new to believe in. A home reborn. Mara's apartment, once silent and heavy with grief, now overflowed with life again. Lyra's laughter filled the rooms, chasing away the shadows that had lived there for years. The shelves that once stood untouched now carried drawings, small toys, and books scattered in colorful disarray. One morning, as Mara cooked breakfast, Lyra skipped into the kitchen carrying a flower she had picked from the balcony garden. "For you, Mama," she said, placing it carefully beside the plates. Mara's heart swelled. "You always loved giving me flowers," she whispered. Lyra tilted her head curiously. "Always? But I only started now." Mara bent down and kissed her forehead. "It doesn't matter when. You are still the same child who brightened my life." Dr. Arlen, who had stayed with them for a few days to keep watch over Lyra's health, watched the scene quietly. He realized then that Lyra was not just an experiment anymore. She was family. The debate of the world outside their home, however, debates grew louder. Scholars argued on the networks. Was Lyra a true human, or only a machine carrying echoes of one? Some worried about what it meant for the future. Would technology be able to bring back anyone? Would death itself lose its meaning? In the great council chambers, leaders discussed new laws. Should beings like Lyra be given the same rights as humans? Could they attend schools, vote, or own property? Dr. Arlen was called to speak before the council. Mara and Lyra came with him, sitting quietly in the audience. "My fellow citizens," Arlen began, his voice steady, "I stand before you not with theory, but with truth. Lyra is not just a program. She is a child with feelings, memories, and love. If you look at her only as a machine, you will miss the miracle standing before you." Some nodded in agreement. Others frowned, unconvinced. Then Lyra, without being asked, walked forward. Her small voice filled the chamber. "I am Lyra. I laugh, I cry, I dream, I remember my mama's songs. If that does not make me alive, then tell me, what does?" Silence followed her words. Even the strongest doubters had no answer. The gift of second chances over time, Novaterra softened. People began to see Lyra not as a mystery to be solved, but as a gift. She became a symbol of hope, a reminder that love could outlast time, and that even in a world built of steel and stars, the heart was still the most powerful force. Families who had lost children came to Mara, asking her how she felt, how she endured, how she smiled again. Some wept in her arms, grateful for her story. Others simply looked at Lyra with wonder, their eyes shining with a fragile kind of hope. Mara, once known only as a grieving mother, became a voice for healing. She told them, "Do not cling to the past, but if life gives you a second chance, embrace it with both arms." The bond that grew as weeks passed, Lyra settled into her new life. She attended a small learning circle with other children. At first, the other kids were curious, some shy, some nervous, but Lyra's kindness and joy soon won them over. She shared her toys, told funny stories, and even taught them the lullaby she and Mara had sung. One evening, Mara found her daughter sitting by the window, looking out at the stars. "What are you thinking about, my love?" she asked. Lyra pointed upward. "I wonder if my memories are still up there in the sky, like little lights waiting to come back." Mara hugged her close. "Even if they are, you have made new ones here, and we will make many more together." Dr. Arlen joined them, carrying a notebook filled with sketches and notes. "Lyra," he said gently, "you have changed my science forever. But more than that, you have changed my heart." Lyra smiled at him. "Then you are like family too." Arlen froze for a moment, then nodded slowly. A warmth spread in his chest. A feeling he had not known in years. A choice for the future. Not long after, the Great Council offered Dr. Arlen a position to lead a vast project, the development of memory synthesis, the technology that had given birth to Lyra. They wanted to explore if others could be given the same chance. Dr. Arlen hesitated. He knew the power of such work. It could heal, but it could also be misused. He gathered Mara and Lyra to talk. "Mara," he said, "they want me to expand this work, to bring more lost memories back. But I am afraid. What if it destroys the meaning of life itself?" Mara looked at him calmly. "Science will always carry risk. But if your work brings comfort, then it is not destruction, it is healing." Lyra reached for his hand. "Doctor, don't be afraid. People will always choose how to use things, but love cannot be misused. If you build with love, you will build something good." Arlen closed his eyes. Their words struck deep. He made his decision. "I will continue," he said at last, "but not to make copies, not to chase death. I will use this gift to remind humanity of what truly matters: connection, memory, and love." A celebration of life months later, a grand gathering, was held in Novaterra's central plaza. Families, leaders, and children filled the square. They came not for politics, not for arguments, but for celebration. At the heart of the plaza, Mara and Lyra stood together. Dr. Arlen stood beside them, his face brighter than it had been in years. Lyra stepped forward to speak. "I was once called a stranger," she said, her voice strong. "But now I am not a stranger. I am a daughter, a friend, and a part of this world. We all carry pieces of each other in our hearts, and that is what makes us human." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices rising like music. Candles were lit, songs were sung, and for the first time in many years, Novaterra felt united. Mara held Lyra close, whispering, "This is the life I always dreamed for you." Lyra smiled. "And this is the life I always dreamed to give you." Though quiet. After the storm that night, when the celebration ended, Mara, Lyra, and Dr. Arlen sat together in the garden. The stars glittered above, endless and eternal. "Do you think the world will ever stop debating what I am?" Lyra asked softly. Dr. Arlen shook his head. "Perhaps not, but the answer is simple. You are Lyra, that is enough." Mara kissed her daughter's hair. "You are my child. That is all I need to know." Lyra leaned against them both, her eyes closing. Then I am the luckiest girl in all the stars. And in that quiet moment, under the wide sky, their story found peace. A new dawn. The world did not become perfect overnight. There were still questions, still doubts, still challenges ahead, but something had changed in the heart of Novaterra. A seed of hope had been planted, and for Mara, Lyra, and Dr. Arlen, the future was no longer a shadow of loss, it was a bright road of new beginnings.